All right, it's 10 o'clock. Good morning and welcome to our coffee break, and thank you for joining. My name is Andy Terenchuk, Senior Account Executive with Long Building Technologies. Our session for today is using analytics to improve indoor air quality. As some of you may know, analytics has been largely used to reduce energy costs, improve labor efficiencies, and increase equipment lifetime. But in today's environment, analytics can be used to meet health compliance guidelines, giving occupants additional safety and confidence as they enter their buildings. I would like to introduce today Eugene Suarez, West Coast Partner Manager for CopperTree Analytics, who will present just a few insights to help facility managers improve air quality. Please use the chat line if you have any questions during our session, and I'll give it away to Eugene. Go for it, Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking some time off your busy schedule. So I'd like to spend 15 minutes that we have today and talk about some of the overlooked factors in managing our buildings. In this particular case, there's two of them. One is the ventilation impact in the purge mode. And this is based on the studies that we've done just recently. We have over 2,000 buildings currently in our portfolio. And what we've done is we've done some exhaustive studies as far as their humidity levels, CO2 levels, and how it impacts, especially how it impacts our building, especially right now, like during the pandemic that we're still currently experiencing. Um, and one of the things that we've seen is that maintaining sufficient airflow is definitely important. And you've seen this, you've done your research, you've read all the different articles, but unfortunately, one of the things that we have observed is that a lot of the buildings currently are not monitoring nor taking precautionary measures to ensure that. For instance, monitoring CO2 levels in various zones.
Usually taking up this time. Huh?
Um, in this particular case, like when
No,
monitoring
meeting.
CO2 levels in different
YouTuber.
zones, it is all yeah, it is always good to look at the historical trends over a period of time and see how you're performing. So what I've done
No, just look
is
at
I've taken
this is
one of the buildings
this is
as an
this
example
site
from
like
our customer, and as you can see right here. So what I've done is I've taken a snapshot or trend log data between around March timeframe of 2019 all the way to January or all the way to current time. So if you can observe with this particular trend log, they're spiking all the way to over, I'd say in this particular case, over 1,300 parts per million for CO2 level. And let me just go back in this one. Now, during the height of the pandemic, and that kind of started like early part of next last year, around February, March timeframe, you could see that the build and there was an announcement like everybody's going to be working from home. A lot of the commercial offices became vacant during that time. The CO2 levels pretty much dropped significantly from like 1,300 ppms all the way down to like 750. Now, the new norm is being stated. We're recommending that you should keep, regardless whether your building is being occupied, to a level about 750 parts per million as far as the CO2 level. That's also can be used as CO2 level can serve as an indicator for occupancy level. On the other hand, there's nothing that's going to change the fact that it's always best to have an occupancy sensor in your building. And for that, like there are a lot of solutions out there, IoT sensors that are currently available in the market. And please talk, you can talk to Andy with at Long for some of their IoT solutions.
Yeah, and give a little break, Eugene. In terms of the occupancy sensors, do you have a sense of how many buildings that CopperTree is used on have occupancy sensors? Is it like 10% or is it 50%?
That's a great question. Currently, right now, out of the 2,000 buildings that we are monitoring, we are logging in about 13% of those out of 2,000 have occupancy sensors.
Okay, that's good to know. Excellent.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of buildings still, as of the moment, doesn't have occupancy sensors. Now, occupancy sensors, what we could do is we can overlay the amount, the number of occupants within a particular zone or a particular room, and overlay the CO2 level. But for those who doesn't have it right now, so some of the buildings we're implementing rules where we're using the CO2 level as a pseudo indication of their current occupancy level.
Exactly. Perfect.
Now, the other thing as well is ensuring proper number of air changes per hour. ASHRAE has set guidelines for this, in fact. Now, it does vary from building to building, types of building. It also vary, even for instance, for healthcare. The number of air changes per hour is different in an ICU as opposed to, say, for instance, in a patient room. Um, Typically for schools like K-12 or universities, the recommended is about 6 air changes per hour. Now, how are we ensuring that level? Are we currently monitoring that? Are we providing this proper ventilation for our occupants? So that's another gotcha moment. Like, and for us, like when we were looking at this as well, unfortunately, there's one data that I have, but I couldn't show due to confidentiality issues. The name of the customer is right there on top. Um, Proper way of calculating air changes per hour is basically us having data such as the volume of the room, so the area, multiply it by the height of the ceiling or the height of the room itself, and the damper position level of your VAVs, supplying air within that zone. We have rules and we have algorithms designed for that, and we can pretty much say like, yeah, for this particular hour, or every hour we are doing about 4 air changes per hour, we're doing about 5, or we're doing about 6.
Question, Eugene, is that
Yeah.
something that a building automation system can also monitor in terms of the air changes per hour? Or is that something that only an analytics platform can do?
Yeah, getting the number of air changes per hour typically would require multiple trend logs. And BAS is great at giving you a trend log of a specific point, but what you need to do is you need to overlay each one and apply the mathematical calculation in order to arrive at the actual air changes per hour.
Great, perfect, good.
Yeah. Now, um, the one thing as well that we've observed is that purge mode. Um, this is simple. It's actually a very simple setting within the BAS where you can either enable or disable purge modes. Typically, what we recommend is that if your occupants are going to the building around 8 a.m., that you should start doing your purge mode, say roughly around 6:30 a.m. or at least 2 hours before. It should be a common practice, but here's the reality. So let me show you as well another real data coming in from one of the buildings that we are monitoring. And this is the weekly purge mode hours. Now, what we've done is, good thing is I have a pretty lengthy history with this particular building. From July of 2016, you can see that the moment that we started implementing analytics, they're doing great. They're still doing some purge modes. On the other hand, there was pretty much almost a year interval where they're not even doing purge mode. Purge mode was actually disabled. Now, in the event or in likely event that this does happen, we do send insights and traps and alerts, and the customer is very well aware of that. So, yep, we're gonna fix it, and they've done that for a period of time. On the other hand, between July of 2017 all the way again another year, there is a lapse in that, and this is what we're aware of is during this time this particular building did some changes into their BAS programming and forgot to turn on their forgot to turn on their purge mode. And similar thing again, it does occur. I think this they're trying to balance between, there's a fine line between balancing energy efficiency and the importance of purge mode. So one of the recommendations I've seen with ASHRAE is you should actually disable demand-based ventilation setting. Um, and right again, during the height of COVID, back in first quarter of last year, there's a spike again as far as purge modes or air purges within that particular building. And from that point on till now, they're rarely occupied. I believe as of the moment, they're using about 20%. They're doing about 20% occupancy for that office building.
And so that's why there's less air purges going on.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
correct.
And
Now,
and
the
also,
record, yeah.
quick question in terms of the building automation system in the purge mode, is that something that, so you've been able to recognize by using analytics and seeing how often that air is purged, right? And
Yes, that is correct.
does the automation system give you an alarm to say, hey, you're not purging air? Is that part of the
Yeah,
system?
typical BAS will tell you the status as far whether it's on
Or
or
off?
off, like whether you're a purge mode or not. On the other hand, being able to track historical data of what has gone on for the last month or for the last week or even perhaps for the last year, unfortunately, unless otherwise you have a data repository of your trend logs within the BAS, typically the memory allows you to store trend log data for a few days. And then you have to offload that into a separate repository. Some I've seen, like depend which BAS you're using. Either if you have historians or you're using some form of cloud storage. In our case, what we've done is that from the moment analytics has been implemented, we store all the trend log data from day one all the way up to 10 years.
And that's also a cloud solution.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I guess the last part is ensuring relative humidity. Now, there has been a study actually by Yale University, and we know for a fact that ASHRAE has set its guidelines between 40 to 60% relative humidity. Now, based on the study by Yale University, they are in fact recommending that that we should maintain between the sweet spot is around between 40 to 60%. And based on their current study, is that I think they've been using either mice or some animals in this particular case. Like in those environments between 40 60%, relative humidity shows substantially less ability to transmit viruses to non-infected mice. Now, it I guess at this point it does warrant further studies, but if we are to follow ASHRAE's guidelines and the study by Yale University, um, I think we're pretty safe on that. Um, this again something that has been often overlooked. But what I've done is I've also taken a recent trend log of a building that we just implemented, and it's kind of alarming, so to speak. Like between January 3rd of this year all the way to present, their relative humidity is hovering anywhere between around 85, 87%. It peaked at around 100% relative humidity and kind of down to about 65. Even if we take the lowest point of that relative humidity data, it is still beyond the sweet spot of between 40 to 60%.
And what kind of building is that, Eugene? Do you know?
This is actually a university.
Yeah, okay. Do you know what
Yeah.
type of building in the university? Because maybe some buildings require more humidity.
Actually, in fact, this particular one, this is room 401, zone 341. So this building is actually, this is a classroom.
Classroom, okay, interesting. Probably pretty uncomfortable for the occupants.
Yes, it is. So maintaining relative humidity is indeed a balancing act. And for this particular case, there's obviously an impact for thermal comfort, and you are inviting microbial growth if you are hovering between 80 to 100% relative humidity.
So question, where in the world was this building?
This is actually in New York City or in state of New York.
State of New York, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
state of New York.
And you're sure everything was calibrated? Those are some outrageous numbers.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is calibrated, and that's a good reason why right now, like having this particular data, the folks at that university is working around the clock on resolving all the different insights that we have triggered. I believe on the first week alone, we've already triggered about 250 insights, and they're working around the clock addressing that.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, so I know we have 15 minutes for the coffee break, but I want to make, I just took this opportunity to, and I'm pretty aware of the fact that all of you know the impact for ventilation and purge modes and what relative humidity is all about, but it is often overlooked. So yeah, Andy.
That's great, Eugene. Excellent. Good work. Yeah, thanks everybody for making it today. For next week, next Thursday at 10 o'clock, January 21st, Erica on our security team will cover Linnell S2 OnGuard 8.0 update. Now, I'm not a security person, but that is quite a mouthful. Again, thank you, and hope you guys can continue coming to our coffee breaks and learning what we're doing and how we can help you guys all out. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.